welcome, my brother.
Well, thank you for having me, sir. It's been a long time coming between our schedules trying to get it done.
When Kyle Romagus is here looking at YouTube, looking at Facebook, ready to grab your questions, make sure we don't miss any of them. Quick announcements. If you are not a member of the Vigilantes, you should go and become so. And with that, we are ready to do our discussion. People don't know the backstory, but originally you were supposed to be here in January. And then I think that one was my fault.
Yep.
And then we moved it to May. And you got promoted.
I swapped shifts.
Right. You promoted it, and we had to swap the day again. And so it only took a year to make this happen. We'll start off with engine company operations, because I'm going to go right into your wheelhouse and kick it off with engine company operations. We'll start with the soft toss.
Well, I think the biggest thing, as an instructor, you can go out and talk to your blue in the face. But the big thing that I always want, as an instructor or my group that I may be teaching with, and I've taught with a lot of different people, is always to have something tangible the student can walk away from. And that's the question, right? Well, part of it is the passion for engine work. I think that's the single biggest takeaway. I think Jonah brings to the table. I'm very passionate about engine operations, very passionate about efficient engine operations, and not just, yes, Charlotte, we have 4 people, but right here down the road from my house where I volunteer, we don't have 4 people. It's a very different environment, and to bring that tangible experience from both sides is something that you asked me what somebody taking my class, that's what I'm going to say. I hate to say it, well, get out of my class, but I think that's a huge thing that my group brings to the table is a passion for engine work, and that it's not just open shut, and it's not just stretch a line to the door and make it work, and we can overpower it with 50 people, because we can absolutely do that. But there's nothing more satisfying than putting a fire out more quickly because of your training, and the skills you've gained, in any class you've taken. And, you could name 1,000 engine instructors throughout the history of the fire service. And, that's the tangible takeaway that I've always sought for is, a passion for the topic. And then right, as well, something that they can use in their environment. And I think that's using experience, right? Context of instruction is super important. Anybody can teach an engine class, but to have the experience to back up some of the points that you're driving home is a separate thing. So I think that's kind of where I land on that. I think Ben Schultz, man, he's like Brian's second worst friend to Sean Duncan, but Ben Schultz's class, every second counts. Really, when I was kind of starting out, that class really hit me in the throat. It was like what he's saying and what I'm thinking are the same thing. And he's just talked about, like, if you waste 3 seconds on the stretch and 10 seconds peeing before the call and 5 seconds, you've taken 10 breaths from that person that's laying in the hallway depending on you. And I think that's a huge piece for me, is that operational tempo, but also then setting your rig up where to the point of apartment fires. That's one of the reasons that a few folks on our committee really pushed that. It was not me pushing it, but it's when it was pushed out, hey, we're going to push this in the meeting. I'm like, absolutely makes sense. We put our long line on the left. We put our apartment bundle, if you paid attention, on the right. Everybody goes, well, why don't you just put them together? Well, then if I'm stretching the dead load, I'm waiting on you to get out of my way to get the bundle so I can go force the door, because I was always a single piece engine guy. So I've got to force the door and get the line in operation. Well, if the bundle's here and you're here, I can't get to it. I got to wait. And that's 5-10 seconds where I could be gapping the door. So I think that's a huge piece, is that the rig set up. And again, just operational tempo, that practice is a huge thing. If you're looking to see what the gold standard of apartment fire line advancement is, there's a video on irons and ladders that I literally, we show our recruits now, because I'm like, that is what we're trying to drive right there.
Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. It is weekly scrap number 211. My guest tonight is the one and only Jeff Rothmeier. He has over 18 years in the fire service, 13 at the city of St. Paul. He is currently with Milwaukee Fire. He is an Army combat veteran, a sniper with Task Force Tacoma. Now in his current life, he is heavily involved with a different style of special operations in the fire service, including Minnesota Task Force 1, Minnesota Aviation Rescue Team, Milwaukee Heavy Urban Rescue Team. He has the education to supplement the experience, including a master's in organizational leadership. He is an author, articles, a book that I have absolutely destroyed and we'll be referencing and talking about tonight. One of my currently favorite books, Mastering the Craft, Cultivating a Philosophy for Fire Attack. I guess I could show the cover. There we go. He is a husband of 17 years and the father of 3. It is my honor and pleasure to have Jeff Rothmeier on as guest of Weekly Scrap number 211. Welcome, my brother.
Thanks, Chief Moore. I appreciate the kind introduction, and I'm honored to be here. Thanks for asking me. I hope I can bring some value to this great podcast of yours.
Dude, I'm looking forward to the discussion. I'm looking forward to the scrap. People are logging in, and already there is a lot of hype. Is there anything I missed? Anything you would like to add to the introduction?
No, just all the stuff in St. Paul and Minnesota. That obviously was a former role. I'm not an active member of those teams, but everything else sounded great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Audience, please get your questions primed and ready for Jeff and myself. We plan to cruise down some rabbit holes. Quick announcements. If you want to be a part of the Vigilantes, if you want to be a member of the exclusive Cool Kids Club, go to firehousevigilance.com. The latest thing the Vigilantes are doing is the scrap after party, which Jeff says he's willing to be a part of, even though I threatened him with the Vigilante roast, which is yet to occur, but we're going to see tonight. When it's over, the Vigilantes go in there and they tell him how good he did. Now, on to the sponsors. Of course, the OG sponsor of the scrap, Keyhose, the original. Check them out online at keyhose.com. Follow them on Facebook. Affordable Drill Towers, home of the Affordable Drill Tower and the Affordable Standpipe Prop. It's firefighter owned and operated. You can pump and roll using the Affordable Standpipe Prop. The Affordable Standpipe Prop fits through most classroom doorways for standpipe theory, and then you can roll it out into the parking lot and pump. It comes with 6 standpipe valves that can be upgraded to PRVs or customized. Call Steve, 844-55-TOWER, or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. Firefighter safety and accountability starts with being able to quickly find and identify individual firefighters operating on the fireground. Identifier safety combines the best in photoluminescent materials for durable firefighter identification solutions that can glow for up to 20 hours with no switches or batteries, which means being able to rapidly identify firefighters by name, unit, or assignment, even under hot fire conditions. It's firefighter owned and operated. Man, be seen on scene. Identifiersafety.com or sales@identifiersafety.com. Last but not least, are you into the job? Are you committed to being the very best you can be? Come celebrate 5 years of blue-collar excellence at the 2024 North Florida Fire Expo. The conference is being held February 7th through the 10th, 2024 on beautiful Okaloosa Island, Florida. For more info, visit www.northfloridafireexpo.com. And that officially gets the sponsors done, and we are ready for the scrap proper. Jeff, where do you want to start?
Wherever you want, Chief. I'm ready for you. What do you got for me?
I want to go straight to the book and say why this. I mean, hey, I love this book. Okay, this is not just because you're my guest on here. I showed you before. I've tried to explain to people. A lot of people know my book reading system where I use the tabs. I've never had to put tabs on the top of a book before because you actually broke my system. I can't thumb through the book because there's too many. So all that being said, why the book? What's the inspiration for it? Broad strokes, where'd it come from?
So first I gotta I really appreciate you sharing that with me. It's very humbling that you would say that, and that it looks like the book is well received across the fire service, those that have given it a read. Honestly, throughout the whole writing of the book, I had to kind of keep chiding myself on to keep writing. I didn't know if the material was relevant for the greater fire service. I felt like it was relevant for me, and I kind of took a chance and just had faith more than anything that if it's relevant for me, it's very possible somebody else might find the same use out of it. So it's validating to know that people value it, and I'm grateful. So the book, which I'm gonna keep up with you here, really, I was in a spot to get that master's degree where I had to write a paper. It had like an 80-page limit to it. Like I needed to come up with 80 pages of material. I really knew the only way I could do something like that and to do the type of research to create that much content, it had to be something that I'm ultimately passionate about, which is the fire service. And, I've had so many conflicts with other firefighters over the years about the nature of our tactics and how we should be deploying on the fire scene, which tactics are more relevant given this scenario, that scenario, risk versus reward, all of the arguments we probably run into constantly fighting for a high standard in our fire service, that I was like, you know what? I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to commit to, really at least understanding the nature of our tactics, the nature of the fire ground. I'm going to analyze data. You want to do risk reward and talk in loose concepts. I'm no longer going to talk in loose concepts. I have data that will ground our concepts to what's actually happening on the fire ground, risk versus reward in certain discussions.
Sure.
And then on top of that, I needed to develop a philosophy that would work for me. So while I was also trying to put hard facts to these conversations, I also wanted to really develop a philosophy that would empower me to be the best version of myself on the fire ground for the sake of the citizens. I don't think you can act as aggressively or as intentionally as you're capable of until your philosophy has strong roots. And that's the purpose of the book, was to develop strong roots for an aggressive fire attack, an aggressive disposition and approach to fire combat. And so there's a lot of there's a lot of influences. It's heavily rooted in some of the warfighting doctrine from the Marine Corps, which I really stumbled onto that through Leadership Under Fire. They run a great class on mental performance and human factors, and that a lot of that, what I learned from that class, and then the resources they kind of gave me regarding the reading lists and some of the educators they brought in, they opened my mind. I was writing this book while going to that, we called it a mental performance initiative in our department. So I'm really grateful to have had that opportunity, and then run into more resources to fuel the book. I had probably half the book, maybe a little bit more written, and probably the last third of the book I found from some of the books I got out of that, going down the route with Gary Klein and recognition,
Right.
prime decision making, and MCDP1 and a few other books that really helped me put an end cap to this one.
Beautiful, man. No,
yeah.
No, and even, and that's why Upwards Ticks is the stuff you did on after action reports, at the end, and decision making exercises. Man, that has already impacted stuff that I'm doing in my department. So,
Awesome.
and I know elsewhere. That's just my personal anecdotal from impact from the book. So let me catch you up with everybody that's chiming in. Let's go. Pen and paper ready. That comes from again. Here we go, boys. Josh Hawk, Carpe Fuego says LFG from Chattanooga, Tennessee, checking in. Nicholas Gwynn said, finally get to watch live. Can't wait. Steve Kaiser checking in from down under. I would do an Australian accent, but it'd be terrible. Scott Thompson said, watching. I love that. I love that, Chief.
Yeah.
Frisco, Texas State. One of the best fire service related books I've read in recent times. That comes from Rob Ketty. So many. Derek Smith said, caught so many nuggets from you a few years ago at a training in Iowa, and it was awesome to see them and come to fruition in this book. One of the best fire service books I've read. So there you go. There's a ton more. You'll have to come back and check them, but I caught some of the bigger ones.
Yeah, you mentioned some solid firefighters and fire chiefs out there. That's we got the initiated joining us today.
No doubt about it, brother. They are checking in to hear what you have to say. So you brought it up, and I want to dig into it a little bit. And it was the war fighting, the military background, basically not just the war fighting aspect, but the military background and the relevance it had to your current mindset.
Yeah, well, and it's because that's where I really started my public service career. Right just after 9/11, I signed up for duty, and that looked different than what I necessarily had pictured when I signed up, but it really formed my foundation of how I approach the work. I wouldn't say I was a lost man before I got in the military. I was starting to establish some pretty good roots, but it certainly centered me. And then when we went to combat, it was an honor of my life. And I got to serve with some really strong men, and I learned from them. Once I came to the fire service, I saw a bit of a disconnect, via this paramilitary goal that we strive to have. There definitely is a disconnect as far as we're not meeting. I guess paramilitary is really a loose term at times.
Right.
And so when I started to kind of see like we're not as intentional as the military is about about seizing the initiative. I mean, that's really the goal of when we go on the fire ground. We're trying to take the initiative back from the fire. The fire started the battle before we got there. We're always behind, and we're never as fast as we want to be. Once we throw on 60 pounds of gear, I mean, we can train fast all we want. We throw on 60 pounds of gear and we throw in the friction that the fire ground presents. It's hard to get the initiative back. So to me, I needed to free my mind in a way that would allow me to maneuver more freely, and really get that squared away in my mind on, what are some of these things that we did in the military, i.e. the Scout Sniper Platoon and Task Force Tacoma that I served with. What were the behaviors? What did we cultivate in that platoon? Because I believe we were combat effective, right. And that was a big word that I always, strived for after I left the military. Was like, what made us combat effective? What were the behaviors? What was the drills? What were the mindsets? And honestly, I got a lot to learn yet, because I just had a conversation with my old platoon leader. And I was mentioning that to you earlier, and he was really walking me down the road of a few things in the book that he's like, I think you can expand on a few of these things in a classroom, and then he was walking, even further in depth on those concepts. So I'm looking forward to learning more. But the fire service, in my opinion, at that time, this was pushing 18 years of service here. I felt like it was more of a sociable atmosphere than it was an intentional atmosphere.
So I just want to dig in. I want to ask, because I've heard this, and I don't want to derail you, but I also want to dig in a little bit and say, especially people that now I have no military service background at all. And so please understand, I'm speaking from ignorance, but a lot of people who come from, especially combat, who left military and then came to the fire service looking for the same type of, I don't want to put the wrong words in, but brotherhood or camaraderie or
absolutely
belonging. A lot of them have felt disappointed when they got there. And I'm sure it's department dependent and things like that. But is that something that you've kind of are alluding to here a little bit, or is it
A
separate?
little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, so we all know that there's like microcultures within the culture of a fire department. And so I think almost every fire department has that group, or, whether it's that house or a couple of houses in that department that have what I would call is a strong brotherhood and a strong culture. And that's what I've always, the reason I got into special operations was because they seemed more intentional. They seemed like they moved towards a purpose together. They were always drilling, and they were competent. And to me, like, those are aspects of fire combat that we need to have. That's an effective, functional culture.
Right.
Now, outside of those groups, I felt like it was really hard to find those firehouses that trained a lot, that were talking shop a lot, and outside of the shop talk, if you're effective on the truck together, you're probably able to talk about a lot of things in the kitchen as well, a lot of life things,
Right.
because you're establishing a social connection. I think that you can have a functional culture without like all the competency and the drill like intention. um i I don't know how you overcome not being effective,
Right.
for the main part of your job. If we get a fire, are we gonna have chemistry? Are we gonna be able to seize the initiative back and deploy these lines, force these doors in the time frames that lead to victim rescues?
Right.
Like, if you can't do that, I feel like it's gonna, like, I just feel like you're not, living up to the oath we took. And we all know that, like, if we come back from a fire, we all know when we did a bad job. And I just
Right.
don't know how you rectify that in a firehouse. And as far as like having pride in your company, right?
Sure. Sure. No. Is it just self-deception and the ability to say, well, the fire went out, everybody went home, so we're okay? And
Right, right. Like, I know that you can say that and our brains, kind of appease us for the moment, but I do think like that kind of erodes some of the pride in the firehouse. Because if
oh
that
yeah.
doesn't matter, then does it really matter if we mop the floor?
Right.
Does it matter if we clean the toilets? I mean, we might do like a quick shot on it, right? Like, really, like, just touch it up for the sake of like, well, the boss might say something, versus like, you know what? This is our house. We take pride in it. When people come here, they notice the fact that we got a busy house and yet it's still well maintained. That's a part of our identity. And so those are the companies that I'd prefer to work for. Because for that to happen, we all have to be engaged and we all have to have the same mindset. One guy or one lady, trying to make the house, look, to a high standard of care, that's not going to happen. Well, that'll be all they're doing all day, right?
Right. No,
So,
no. Couple questions, and I'm not trying to derail because you were on a roll, but a couple
yeah, go
questions coming from the audience. First one's coming from Eric Wheaton, and he wants to know any thoughts on audiobook version.
I haven't been approached with it. Yeah, I mean, I'm down. Like, if it brings value to the fire service, I'm in, right?
Right on. Right on.
Yeah.
Love that answer. I don't know how it works with fire engineering and everything, how they work that and stuff. So
Yeah, I don't either.
Stephen McCaffrey wants to know, what benchmarks do you use to measure combat effectiveness?
So the benchmarks I would use to measure is, a little of this is fluid, right? And so I think water on the fire within the first minute of the fight, when the air brakes are set, water on the fire in the first minute is pretty effective. That gives you about 20, 30 seconds of a stretch, 20, 30 seconds of an advance. Obviously, if you got an extended or a fire that's 3-4 floors up and you got to advance a charge line up that far. Well, we got different problems. But I'm just saying, like, bread and butter, kitchen fire on a, let's say in a ranch. Yeah. Within a minute, you should have water on the fire. So that's one benchmark for the engine to try to hit. And mind you, I actually value very highly drilling with a clock. And I don't know if everybody does that, but I mean, like, every combat drill, it would be ideal. You know how, like think about this. If we tried to put that clock into play on all of our little battle drills, I don't know if all of you have, well, whether or not you've been around for a long time or not, if you can try to think back when you first started seeing videos of firefighters masking up, what were their mask up times?
Right.
Yeah, like back in the day, I feel like I first started seeing them, like 20 seconds was a valued time. And I feel like some people say that's kind of like the standard. I tell that to the new firefighter one, candidates right now, is like, get to 20 seconds. But if you're on the street, you really should be pushing 10. And if we think about that, I really believe that came about because of all the engagement from people posting videos nonstop about their techniques and talking about them. And so that gave everybody the necessary feedback to drill to a high standard.
Right.
10 seconds. We're giving that time back to the citizens. I think that's highly functional. So, so right there, an effective benchmark for your, if you want to get it down to this micro progression to your mask up, is like 10 seconds, right? Like 15 seconds. That's you're getting after it, right? You're seeking to take back the initiative. Your searches, like, I don't know why we don't have NFPA standard. I wrote this in the book. So we talk about the gallonage, how much gallonage we should have on the first two lines. We talk, I'm sure NFPA, and I don't know all these, like how soon the call needs to get dispatched, how soon we need to get on the rigs, how soon the first engine should be on scene, how soon the first, alarm box should all be on scene. We have standards for all these benchmarks, but when we're on the scene, we don't seem to have standards for when we should complete the search. So to me, you should have the first floor clear or the primary search all done within 5 minutes of scene time, because that's what the statistics are telling us is 6 minutes, over 50% of our victims are going to be recoveries, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, none of us signed up to be a part of the recovery department, right? Like, our hearts are set on rescue. So we have, so just like we got down to 10 and 15 seconds on those mask ups, it's even more critical to get those searches done in 5 minutes if we want to have a shot at at rescue.
Right.
So that's a benchmark to me, is like, get the primary search, all floors done in 5 minutes with whatever you have responding, build your response around that. And I think you're becoming really combat effective. You're giving the citizen the best chance possible. That's an area I want to live. So 5 minutes, that gives you a minute for rescue, right? That gives you that minute to get them out of the IDLH, whether you go out a window or door. You got to make the right decisions to make use of that minute. But I am finding, like, when I put a clock on, like, all right, I'm going to do a second floor VES, so getting the ladder up the truck, getting the ladder to the window, taking the window, diving in the window, getting the search done. I'm pushing like 3 to 4 minutes just getting the search. And now I got to get a drag in, get them over the sill. We don't got much time.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Every time I put a clock on, if I got to force a door, what is that, a 30-second force? Let's try to get that door force in 30 seconds or less. So which benchmark do you want to hit? I think we got a lot of them. We should just start throwing a clock, and you got to put full battle rattle on, because like I said earlier, none of us are moving fast. So we can put a clock on our stretch or in our advance, or we can put a clock on our victim drags when we got no gear on. But that's not an accurate clock. The clock's only going to slow down more because of the novelty of the scene. The smoke and heat conditions are going to do something to us. And all the, like, well, let's talk about hoarder conditions and the debris. Nighttime, all the complications these things bring, victims with sloughed skin. I could go on and on, right? So the clock.
Right.
So if we can't nail the 5-minute, search time, or the 30-second force, or the, 1-minute ladder throw and window, is out. If we can't nail the times and ideal conditions with our SCBA on, we're really going to struggle when we're up against it.
Boom. There you go. Great answer, man. Unbelievably good answer. And you went all over the place. As I say, you hit so many benchmarks, not all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you meandered. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm tracking.
Scott Thompson, Chief Scott Thompson, asking a question. And in fact, Chief, I'm going to pull your question down. I'm going to ask it in a minute. Peyton Price wants to know, sorry if I missed Jeff talking about it. Is there a difference between efficiency and effectiveness? What is your opinion on the subject?
Well, that's so efficiency, I think, leads to effectiveness. It's interesting that he's asking about this, because I actually just did. I'm still going to school, right? I'm still in the higher education system, and I'm still asking questions about the fire service. It might drive me to write another book that is relevant if I find the right topics, right? So efficiency was the topic I studied this last semester, summer semester, and I was trying to find out if efficiency drove firefighter performance. So I got a long rabbit hole, but I found some answers that I think are relevant. And part of that is yes, we won't be effective if we're not efficient. Now, this is from a physiological standpoint, right? Is, again, we got 60 pounds of gear. Nothing's really fast when we're trying to move around on the fire ground. It's just not. So what it does need to be is efficient, and we'll call it smooth, right? So the smoother I am about it, and if we've heard the old military adage, slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yes.
It applies in much of our work in the fire service. Everything is heavy, everything is bulky, and everything zaps our energy completely. So when we're in this paradigm, efficiency is our anchor to effectiveness, if that makes sense. If I go all out on moving that hose line up the stairs, by the time I get to the top, if I wasn't using efficient body posture and any little tacit knowledge tricks, right? I guess I'm not have any queued up on, but let's say when I do an overhaul, a task I do on every fire ground, so we should be better at overhaul, right? But that being said, if I'm not prying with maybe like a Halligan or a hook, I'm most likely swinging a heavier tool, and I'm the one providing the force instead of the tool providing force multiplication, right? So I'm not being efficient there. So my effectiveness at the end state of that event is going to be diminished because of my lack of efficiency. So there's a correlate there if we're thinking on those terms. Yeah. So efficiency is a big deal, in my opinion, especially when it comes to our energy systems.
Dude, I love it, man. I look forward to the next book. So I really do. I'm not even no hyperbole at all. Okay. Scott is kind of getting into culture, and we'll just ask this question. Chief Thompson wants to know, based on your research, what is the most effective way to positively influence the microculture, a firehouse/fire company?
I'm just writing this down just because as I'm talking, I almost got to look at it, right? So a microculture, one company. And I got to think back a little bit on my experiences, right? So it's not like you can walk in, and this is my opinion, because I've tried to do this and failed miserably. It's not like you can walk in and say we're gonna be like this from now on, and we're gonna be we're gonna be hard chargers. No one's gonna be better than us. Take it from me, that approach does not work. And honestly, like I'm actually like not just frustrated, like I'll take ownership of that. Like I feel like I didn't have a positive influence on some fireground outcomes because I didn't create the right culture. So maybe I need to read Chief Thompson's book a little more closely, right? But what I have seen positively influence those type of cultures is small examples, continuous small examples of connection. So let me describe a few of those.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to hear what it sounds like.
Okay, I'll give you a prime one, and this came from a leader at my house.
Real quick, you have a clicky pin, and the mic is picking it up.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just telling you because it's gonna. Yeah, if I don't
Is it
tell you,
driving you nuts?
well, the recording it will. As people listen to it, they won't know what it is. And so, anyway,
I was just
sorry.
gonna say because you know I'm a firefighter. I'm just
Right. No, it's gonna keep going. I know it's gonna happen again, so it's all good. Go ahead. It's subconscious.
Right. So the captain well, I'll just tell the story.
Go.
I started noticing at this house. I came to this house, Station 23, about 3 years ago, and honored to be there. You know, we have a rescue there, and you know, you get when you go there, you typically on the engine first, and then you try to earn your way to the rescue, and you're part of the special operations team there. So that being said, one of the things I started noticing about some of the behaviors of some of the bosses on the engine was they would open the door for me every now and then, the back door of the rig, right? We go on a EMS call. I got all the kits, you know, do the blood pressures, do the thing, right? And then I would notice the door would be open. You know, as we're walking back, I didn't pay any attention to what the boss was doing, but my door was open. And so I was like, oh, the boss just got the door for me. That's pretty cool, right?
Right.
What's the big deal, right? Why even talk about this on a great podcast, right? Well, here's the deal. So I notice behaviors, and I think we all should, because we do subconsciously, and we assimilate and condition ourselves to act like that as well, because we want to be accepted in our different, you know, in our different societies. So I noticed, like, a little while longer, a different boss was now working with me, and all of a sudden I noticed my door was open again, right? So I'm like, you know, this is a couple different bosses now are working with me, and every now and then I'm noticing the door is open, and I'm like, there's something going on in this station culturally that's happening. And I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I was curious. And I was like, you know, that's kind of a nice thing. You know what I mean? Like, is it a big deal? Like, at the time I thought, nah, it's not a big deal, but I'm curious. Right.
Right.
All right. So here's where I'm going with it. Then I worked with my captain. My captain works on a different shift, right? And so you know, what I noticed was in those previous experiences, it was just kind of once in a while that the door would be open. Every call I go on this with this captain on, the door is open. Every single call. And I said, I found the source. This is the guy, you know, and he's the captain of the house too, right?
Right.
So it's pretty obvious to make that connection. So I went up and asked him about it. I was like, you know, where'd this come from? Why do you do this? You know, because, you know, I think it's having an effect. I think you're influencing other people. There's a domino effect here. What it basically says is I give a shit about you. Okay. And that's a big deal for us in this profession. Because if you want to see the opposite, go into a house where everybody goes to their own room and values that time by themselves, as opposed to where everybody is in the kitchen laughing, talking about tactics, and helping each other cook a meal or put together a drill, or you name the number of things that we do at this house. Those are the behaviors that I'm blessed enough to see. And then on the fire ground, what I see is a pretty functional combat effective outcome. And I've just started, like, unfortunately, the me that was a leader in St. Paul as a company officer did not understand these little psychological connection bits that lead to moral victory on the fire ground. And so now I see it now, right? Because I failed and it hurt. You know what I mean? Like it hurt when I felt like I was a mediocre leader. But when
Right.
I see a very effective leader, I'm inspired, right? And so I want to be a part of that culture, and I want to help grow it. And so that's why I'm talking to you about it today, because I'm like, the only way I can help grow it is not only to be an example, but then to share it with other people and how effective it is on the outcome. So I guess that's a long way of saying, like, try to establish connection with your crews through little things. I told a senior firefighter who retired, one thing he used to do in the back of the rescue, he was a senior man and I was the junior man for a little while there. Before he retired, this guy always he called them rig snacks, right? He always brought these like a bag of almonds or something. I mean, he'd always offer them to you, right?
Right.
So it sounds stupid, right? But it's selfless behaviors.
No, it's awesome. I mean, it's that messaging. It's that psychological messaging, that psychological safety that it inculcates. Is that the
yeah?
Yes.
I
love it, brother.
It's cultivating aggression.
Yes.
I hate to say, like, we're talking about connection and aggression being in the same sphere, but if
nurturing aggression through consistent, what'd you say? Small continuous examples of connection.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't see it coming, but it's in front of me. So there it is.
That's another book. So we got 3 books or 2 more you got to write at some point.
Right.
You owe it to the fire service. That's going to bring value.
You're right. So I do owe it to the fire service.
I know which lever to push on you right now. So people, Nick Papard chiming in said, never underestimate the power of small acts of thoughtfulness consistently performed over time. People notice even if it seems like they don't. Alan says it all starts or should start at the kitchen table. Joe Schuler said, Jeff Rothmeier, you are a prince, with 3 exclamation points. So
I have to share with you just to double down on this concept.
Okay, go. Right. I love stories. I love examples. So go.
I've got 2 guys who one's he's a captain in St. Paul. The other one, I believe, is a deputy chief now. So they were junior to me in St. Paul. I was a senior man on the rig for them. 2 separate occasions, the same behavior, and years later I heard about the outcomes that it led to them. Okay, so they're rookies, right? They're probies. They just got the job. One of them comes in and he comes to engine 17. We're a busy company, good fire duty. We're going to be up all night, settle in. We're going to see some stuff today.
Right.
So it's his first week or so on the job. I make breakfast in the morning. That's what I did at that time in my career. It was a single company station. So I'm like, I'll make breakfast for the guys. That's my thing. Right. So he came in, hey, where am I setting up my gear? How's the station layout? Hey, put your gear on the whatever driver's side. Here's all the stuff. Well, how do you like your eggs done? Right. Oh, so bang, made him some eggs. Like 5 to 10 years later, this guy came up to me, and he's a captain now himself. Right. We're both captains at the time. He's like, Jeff, you'll never know how much it meant to me that you made breakfast for me. I loved my time at 17s, loved it. So this other gentleman who was only like a year or 2 behind him, same thing. I was at the station for a few years. He came in, same outcome as far as same behaviors.
Right.
Hey, throw your gear right there. Welcome. Here's the layout of the house. How do you like your eggs? Type of thing. Right. Again, probably 7-8 years later, this gentleman, right before he promoted, worked on a company with me at 17s. And he was like, hey, Jeff, you'll never know how much that meant to me. I remember when this happened and you treated me like this.
Wow.
Are you kidding me?
Right.
It just caught me off guard because, I was searching at that time, trying to figure out, like, how do I influence this department more effectively? How do I help us become the best that we can become. And I really thought it was through tactics, and I really thought it was through fitness. And I still think those are key critical items, but we're missing a moral victory here, I think.
Beautiful, man. And to get the validation years later that, not even looking for it, but to get the validation, the confirmation, the unsought, that's awesome.
Yeah. I stumbled upon the like they told me about that, and I didn't think about it then. I just thought, so they told me this, probably it's 7 years ago. I had those conversations with those two gentlemen. And then I ran into what's going on at my current station, and I'm starting to connect the dots here, because, people are looking for connection when they come into this industry, and sometimes we withhold it. And not everybody can tolerate that, right? Like some of us can, we're willing to earn our stripes, and we can tolerate you being a little gruff with us until we show you what we're made of, but not everybody can. And some people hold on to that. And I don't know if I see too many people out there in high performance land as resentful people full of anxiety, right? Like, I don't think resentment and anxiety fit into high performance.
Right on.
Like, I don't think those are good correlates.
No, I love it, man. I love it. And just to go back just a few seconds and go back to those two that came back to you and told you how much it meant to them, right? That validation you got years later, just to bring it full circle, they probably don't realize how much it meant to you to hear how much it meant to them. Just the full circle. James Michelisco is asking from Indianapolis, Jeff, I always hear people who have never served in the military scoff at the fact that we are a paramilitary organization. Can you explain the similarities and why it is important that we maintain the paramilitary mentality? If you think we should, of course. I don't want to put words in your mouth at all.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do. And I was actually thinking about this earlier. I'll go with the why first.
Okay.
When we would have a drill in the military, before the drill, there was smoking and joking. After the drill, there was smoking and joking. But that was kind of before whoever was leading the drill got a hold of us and told us the task conditions and standards, right? This was us mustering up and hurrying up and waiting. But once we were on drill time, drill in the fire service becomes a social event much of the time. Unfortunately, there's all kinds of this might apply here or that might apply there, or this tactic's probably better, because it's almost like we're searching for validation of our way of doing it versus just doing it. Especially who cares if whoever's in charge of the drill today and executing the drill, who cares if it's not the most effective way to do it? At least you'll have another way to do it that you can adapt from. And adaptation is a part of competence, and it's a part of, winning conflicts, right? Is you have to have the ability to adapt. So you do a drill that's not completely in your wheelhouse, or you don't think is completely effective. We don't have to ruin it with a bunch of sidebar conversation for the next half hour and then do we have a great conversation, but a half-assed drill, right? So I see that happening a fair amount as we talk about a drill more than we drill. And so in the military, it was no, you're going to be doing the sets and reps more, because you had enough respect for the rank by the indoctrination process. You had enough respect for the rank that you weren't going to openly question the drill and then have this big sidebar conversation, whether it's relevant or not, right? You were just going to follow orders. Now, obviously, there needs to be some room for people to take initiative on the fire ground. By when I say just follow orders, I'm not. You don't want to create mindless warriors, right?
Right.
So there's a balance there, but in drill time, let's just follow the orders, do the drill. And if you got something after the drill that you think would be more beneficial for the leader to throw at us on the next drill, then let's do it at that time. But let's get our sets and reps in. That's a big part of the thing I think is happening in the fire service when we don't have paramilitary, is we start to, we're all entitled all of a sudden now. Like we lose our obedience and we lose our discipline, and so once we're all entitled, like, well, who's leading us? Are we just kind of leading ourselves? Well, we better have some really strong leaders across ranks if we're all going to lead ourselves. That's where the paramilitary thing, I think, really helps out. It establishes a rank and structure that everybody is disciplined to. Obedience is a good thing, right?
Right.
So I think it really helps us execute right on the fire ground. So when it's time to go, like this word that's become, I think, a nasty word in the fire service, freelancing, I think some of that goes away when we have better indoctrination, right? Like I guess like freelancing wasn't as big of a word in larger departments because they are a little bit more paramilitary than, and I was a volunteer for years, than in smaller departments, because we did respect, I think, the officers a little bit more because of the paramilitary structures that were in place. And then it just seemed like freelancing wasn't as big of a problem as it's made out to be in some of the smaller departments that had less paramilitary structure.
So is the organizational respect or the systemic respect that seems to be the main casualty?
I think so. I think we're losing some of that. I like how you put that, Chief. It's a big deal.
Because it really does. Like you said, once you allow each person, like everybody does what's right in their own eyes, go biblical a little bit. But then if you're left to everybody gets to pick what they get to do, if you're in a season of life, if you're in a valley, complacency, man, then why do anything?
Right.
Without that discipline, without that sorry.
Well, no, you're right. And on the fire ground, we need to execute with violence of action. We need to seize the initiative back. And we just don't have time. The time we're making in our drills for the talk and this and that, we don't have time for that on the fire ground. So while the talk is good, I think the talk on discussing the drill should almost happen at the kitchen table if the officer is willing to tolerate it, right? Like, hey guys, I'm thinking about a drill. Here's what I'm thinking. You guys want to give me some input before I set it up? Or the senior man or whoever's putting the drill together, let's talk before we get out there. Then when it's set up, let's just get our sets and reps in, because that's going to develop like this implicit communication, this implicit nature and cohesion on the fire ground is by doing drills often enough that you can predict when your partner is doing this or that, and you can support his or her operation. Right. But we need a lot of sets and reps, and we have to value them. And I think we almost value like the discussion at times because of the social aspect of the fire service versus the paramilitary aspect of, the military, right? It's like, no, just go out and do the drills. These are your combat drills. They're going to help you survive. We don't always look at it that way.
Right on, man. More questions coming at you. Brad Brown coming at you. Brad Brown said, "Why is the scrap not required training on Monday nights?" It's a great question, Brad. I had to say it out loud. Right. But part of the reason why is because of my work schedule. Sometimes it's on Tuesdays and sometimes it's on Sundays, depending on if I'm on duty. So that's one of the reasons. But I absolutely love the thought there, and it should be every department should absolutely listen to scrap each and every time to fly. I want to move and switch tracks on you. Although anything you want to say, of course, you're free to go with. Injured on duty, the glory of the fire service. I love this topic.
Yeah. Well, I brought that up because that's it's now, right? Like for me. And I don't know that I'm necessarily going to get into a whole story of what happened to me, but I got injured pretty good. And so like the fire service has really taken care of me. That's including not just locally. Like locally, it was very impactful because of the nature that everything occurred. But I really wanted to like take a minute. Like I saw the light of mankind through God, right? Or I should say the light of God through mankind. I'm sorry, I had that backwards. Like that's what I saw when I got injured. My family was in the valley of darkness, and that's what I saw. I saw people come to my bedside. I saw people sit with my wife, not people, firefighters. And I did have family and other citizens helping out, but most prevalently, the heartbeat of our resiliency came from firefighters. They sat with my wife. They drove my broken body 4 hours. So think about this. Some of those brothers at that station of mine, they went on a 4-hour EMS run, right? Like we don't do that
Right.
on a Sunday night at 2 a.m. So I was just talking to Joe Klocka and Patty Walsh about this the other day. One of our brothers got married, and my wife was there, and it brought her to tears that she saw a couple of the people and what they did for us, right? And so like we had to go up and say, like, every time we see you, I work with them, so I see them often. I don't bring this up every day, but like as a couple, we feel the need to always honor them. Like 2 a.m., 4-hour drive. They drove my broken body to be with my daughter when she was having a significant surgery. And you know what? They had, like, I'm guessing a very short time period to respond, because I got injured on a Saturday night, and Sunday night I was heading out, getting released from the hospital. So 5 firefighters from my station stepped up, left their families for 5, maybe even a week. I'd have to look at the calendar, but for at least 5 days, they left their families to be with mine. And I felt terrible about it, because I knew that they were doing it just because of me, and I didn't want them to be burdened with my problems, right? And they laughed at me each time and said, "What do you need, Jeff? We're going to be here. So just tell us what you need and shut up. We're going to stay with you."
Right.
And so, like, eventually I just accepted, the glory of the fire service. Their behaviors for me are life-changing. They showed me, because there's been times in my career where I've been frustrated with maybe some of the lack of engagement on the tactical side, and pursuing a high performance. Like, I've been frustrated a lot in the fire service with that, and my behaviors haven't always, like, resembled back to maybe some of the people that I didn't think were pursuing that. My behaviors haven't been great either, and like communicating with them, trying to influence them to bring up the standard of care. These guys, like, just showed me a whole new level and example of behavior. And I'm so humbled by what they did, because I literally scratched the surface of what they did. I had like at least 2 or 3 of them out in my backyard for 3 days. Like, I had a bunch of trees and crap that I've been meaning to get to for years now, and probably would have never. I mean, they spent 3 days in my backyard transforming my backyard.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like, so here's the deal. Like, I couldn't tell you that they loved me that much. Like, if you would have asked me, like, hey, what did the guys think of you at your firehouse? I would have said, like, I think they would say I'm a hard worker, and they would trust me on the fire ground. I kind of put limits to that. Their actions told me that it would seem that they value me more than that. And honestly, like, that is the most humbling thing that I've ever encountered in my life. I don't know how I'll ever pay them back. And I'm very motivated to be serving this department and amongst such men and women of character.
That's awesome, brother. That's awesome. And the story is awesome. And I hope that no one ever has to, like, the power, like you say, the glory of the fire service. I've never heard it put that way. It's beautiful. I hope no one has to ever experience it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I really do. But it is powerful when it's in effect.
Absolutely.
I wanted to get to this. Lessons learned from an Iwo Jima veteran,
Yeah.
member of the greatest generation in Marine. Talk to me about what that mentor.
Yeah. So that mentor, I ran into him a few years back. I started volunteering with Honor Flight, and the gentleman who introduced me to the Honor Flight Volunteer Network, he does a lot of work with gosh, he actually just passed 2 weeks ago. I'm talking about it like he's still around. So that gentleman, he's a good friend of mine's father. He passed, God rest his soul. But he introduced me to an Iwo Jima vet. I had asked him to introduce me. I was asked to teach a few classes about culture, and it really seems like too big of a topic for me to teach. I observe culture, and I like wonder, like, how can we bring more goodness and virtue to the world? How can we be more united as far as, like, especially in our small units, you know?
Sure.
It's an ideal, but even like a department, like, how can we maneuver a ship in the right direction?
Yes.
So then I thought, well, if somebody's having me teach it, I got to give it my best shot. And I was like, well, I guess I would just have to learn from the examples of those cultures that were the most functional. So to me, the two of them that came to my head is the Greatest Generation. And I've always felt like I should have been born in that generation. And then two, the United States Marine Corps. I was an Army, and I love the Army, but the Marine Corps is the world's finest fighting unit. So I told my my friend, I was like, do you know any World War II vets that are Marines that, you know, are still coherent enough to kind of mentor me? And he introduced me to Ralph Semino, because he's like, what are you trying to accomplish? And I was like, I need to learn the values of the Greatest Generation in the Marine Corps. And I'd like to ask him questions and kind of dive into that so I can teach it to young firefighters or departments who are looking for this type of feedback. So I got to know Ralph very well. And so he landed on Iwo Jima as a part of the first assault wave. From what I could put together in his bio, like, in that first assault wave, 500 soldiers, I think, around that came off the first boat. Only 4 of them lived, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's one of the 4. And so 5,000 soldiers, I believe, in the first 2 days, Marines, 5,000 Marines died in the first 2 days, 7,000 total, 36 days of constant fighting. I believe 27 medals of honor in this battle. So one of the slogans from this battle was uncommon valor became a common virtue in this battle, I believe, is one of the slogans that I've read. And so one of the most impactful things that I've started to convey that Ralph taught me, and Ralph taught me a lot, and he still does. He's not doing great right now. He's 98, so he's
wow.
Yeah, he's up against it, and up in the last year, things have kind of taken a turn. But and even in that, he's really facing his struggles with amazing grace. But one of the things I really wanted to share with the listeners that I think other students have valued, Ralph told me that 7 Marines jumped on grenades for their brothers. So I could only find like 2 of the Medal of Honors, that are 3 that had jumped on a grenade, sacrificed himself for his brothers. But, you know, Ralph was there, so I'm believing him, man. So 7 Marines jumped on grenades for their brothers. Okay, so I'm a soldier, and proud of it, right? In the Army, our training was for grenade ops, how to throw it, right? But other than that, you tried to get the heck out of the area if a grenade landed near you. That's what you were trained to do. Or if you're in a foxhole, like maybe you dug a little sump for that thing to fall into, and then you kicked it in there and you dove the other way, right? So culture, one thing I in the classes that I've given on culture is it's conditioned behavior. Like when you see symbols and traditions and behaviors of those around you that kind of get repeated all the time, without thinking about it, those are culture, right? So that's culture at play. And it's key to think about this without thinking about it. It's the actions and behaviors of people in a group that are being displayed without thinking about them. It's really telling you the values of that group. Okay. So to me, I started making a connection with this grenade thing. Those soldiers, those Marines, they didn't, and I've asked several Marines this now, was your training like the Army's training? Did they ever train you to jump on a live grenade? Because they didn't train me that. And a Marine and a soldier are also going to know that you probably have 3 to 7 seconds before the grenade's going to go off. So in 3 to 7 seconds, you don't have time to think. So without thinking about it, the culture in the Marine Corps, to me, looks to be selfless. And that is such a, and Ralph also taught me this. He used to talk about all of their training and how the behavior, some of the indoctrination, while it was hardy training and they suffered greatly, they all did it for each other. The team was more important than the individual.
Right.
So that is a display, the ultimate display of the team being bigger than the individual. If Marines are jumping on grenades for their brothers. So now I was like, okay, well, is it just a generational thing? Kyle Carpenter, if you ever get to read his story, I forgot the name of his book, but it's in 2012, I believe, around that time frame in Afghanistan, he jumped on a grenade as well for his brother. He's still alive today. He's the youngest Medal of Honor recipient. So he's a Marine, jumped on a grenade for his brothers in combat, still alive today, right? So to me, it just showed me that culture has survived generations. It's not just like a greatest generation thing. It's the Marine Corps culture is selfless, to the very extent of the word, right?
Right on.
Yeah. So
You Were Worth It. That's the book. Sorry. I was thinking,
yes.
you had me thinking. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that's the guy. So one of the things that Kyle, I loved is like when people tell him, thanks for your service, he's, that's his answer. You're worth it. Right.
Nice.
I think that's a pretty powerful answer because I've caught, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this once in a while just to see if I get a reaction out of somebody, because I like the intent. The intent was like, I didn't serve for me, I served for you. Yeah. And you know what, I did sacrifice for you, but you're worth it. It's a nice message to send. I'm not trying to get all touchy and feely here, but when that captain leaves that door open for me, he's telling me the same thing.
Right on.
And it's influencing my initiative to serve with the best I've got, right? Like it might have limits, but I'm motivated to serve when I'm around people that are expressing these things culturally, subconsciously with each other, right?
Right. Way to bring it full circle, brother. That's awesome, man. Right back to the beginning.
I'm trying.
Put a nice bow. That's a perfect chance to segue into one of my favorite topics to ask the guest, and it's book or books that you think firefighters should be reading. Does not have to be fire-related books, but I love getting new books to read.
Oh, all right. Well, one, I think they should read MCDP 1. It's a free download if you Google warfighting, Marine Corps Doctrine Publication 1. That's a big one I think you should read.
Oh, absolutely.
Honestly,
you can get the little you can get the printed version, and you can also get the PDF. Yeah. One cost a little bit, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I believe that's that opened my eyes. It really did.
Okay.
And it's a heavy influence in the book that I wrote. And I actually got to speak with the author of MCDP1. I was so, jazzed about it. John Schmidt. Darn, I'm forgetting his rank. So I guess I'm a terrible, anyways. Yeah. So I think he might've been I know for sure he's a captain at the time he wrote the book, but anyways, other than that, Vincent Dunn, if we're talking fire service books, I love his books. And honestly, they start to have, so he's got a heavy influence on me in this book too.
Right.
In the book I wrote, his book on battle spaces.
Yeah. You referenced it quite a few times. Yes.
Yeah. I really appreciate, because, okay, so I tried to read Brannigan's Bible on building construction. I feel like I can only do a chapter here and there.
It is dense. It is dense.
Yeah. Like, I don't think I haven't sat down. I'm initiated. I'm in the game, right? Like, I sit down and read quite a bit of things to try to make it better, or make myself better for us, or make it better for us, right? Whatever we can do to push the initiative here. But that Brannigan's pretty tough read for me.
Right.
So I do a chapter at a time. Battle spaces, it's building construction relevant. I zipped right through that. So
Right
if you're struggling with Brannigan's work, it's solid, and it's the Bible of building construction for the fire service. But I think Vincent Dunn's, if we're talking in those terms of the Bible, his is the New Testament.
Nice.
Right?
I like
building construction. So
no, love it.
Yeah.
Solid, brother. Solid.
Yeah.
All right. Now we have a thing we do on the scrap. It's called the 5 questions for firefighters. Of course, you're number 211, so we've done quite a few. So the questions have changed over time, and we are currently in the 5 questions for firefighters version 3.2. So there are no right or wrong answers. The answers are completely your opinion, and then the points are arbitrary. They're assigned by me with the help of the live audience as you answer the questions. So my question for you, Jeff Rothmeier, is: are you ready for the 5 questions for firefighter version 3.2?
Yeah, send it.
All right, here we go. Number 1, what is the skill that has carried you through your fire service career?
Curiosity. You want me to expand?
Always.
Okay, curiosity. So curiosity is going to lead to presence in your drill. So if you're getting through your drills and you're just nailing them, you're like, you're going to probably check out and move on to like socializing and having a good time hanging out with other firefighters. But I'm curious. So I'll watch other people drill and I'll remain present in the drill longer, right? So my mental engagement is now part of the drill. I'm watching different people do things, different firefighters do things differently. And then I'm wondering why. Like, why is that firefighter holding the tool this way or that way? And then I wonder, how might that impact my ability to do a better job on the fire ground? I constantly watch firefighters train, because a lot of times I get the honor of instructing, and I try to remind them to remain present. I think it's a skill set. This presence is a skill set, mindfulness, whatever. That's right. Like almost right behind curiosity. But the curiosity, it really motivates me to be present. Like, I remind myself, like, hey, what am I doing here? And then obviously I'm here to grow. And if I'm not curious about what's going on around me, I won't stay engaged. Hence, I won't come up with new relevant material for my drills. And I might get into this stale pattern of, some type of complacency, right?
Right on. I love it, brother. Number 1, max points, curiosity, presence in your drill. I've never heard curiosity tied to mindfulness like that. And I really like that. The causation of that right there. Yeah. David Stepp said curiosity. I really like that. I hear you, bro. 100%. So there you go. Number 2, it's job town. It's time. You're en route and responding. Think of the scene from Backdraft where he slaps the cassette tape into the into the thing and the starts playing, what song are you playing en route?
I'm gonna have to go with Skillet Hero. It's kind of cheesy. I'll take all the shots. I'll take the shots, but I dig it. You know.
I'm trying to think. We're gonna make a playlist off all the answers to this. Skillet's Hero. All right. Number 3. What is your favorite fire service tradition?
The history of the Maltese cross. It's our foundation, right? So we all wear it. You know, like if there's anything every fire department across the nation does, we know how difficult that we would every fire department across the nation to agree on one thing. I feel like we all pretty much have the Maltese cross. Would you agree with me on that one, Chief?
I would agree with that.
Okay, so to me, it's the most relevant one, and I love the story, right, of the Knights of Malta, who were the first firefighters because their brothers were dying in combat because of this new weapon. And I don't have the right name. The Saracens, maybe is how it's said. Yeah, this new weapon that they flung at the Knights of Malta and it started them on fire. And so just like our brothers just like the Marines have dove on grenades for their brothers, our tradition is that the Knights of Malta dove on top of their brothers who were on fire and risked their lives to put them out. They had red capes on too, so if you got red fire trucks, we're winning.
I like it. I love it, brother. Anytime you can reference red fire trucks, you get max points. James Mitchell-Lisco said, hell yes, max points 100. So there you go. Number 4. Now, this one is the one. This is the brand new one. It's only been done once before, last week by Jonah Smith. So this one goes on the clock. You can see the clock that is up there for you. Sam is going to make it visible for all of the audience. And you have 1 minute to tell me who are the 4 people you would put on your Mount Rushmore of the fire service, and go.
All right. James Braidwood, one of the most aggressive early firefighters in our industry. Vincent Dunn, his books are something else, and they've had such an impact on me. He's got to be there for me. So right, and before Vincent Dunn, Hugh Halligan, right? That bar and that Halligan hook, that's what's going with me on every scene. So he's with me, right? And then I'm going to go with Andy Fredericks.
Perfect. With time to spare. Made it look easy.
There we go.
Made it look easy. 20 seconds to spare. Brother Braidwood, you went 19th century. How can you knock that? Vinny
Right.
Dunn tied it back in because you've already referenced him. Hugh Halligan, like you said, you carry him to every fire, and you will never go wrong. You will never go wrong with Andy Fredericks, man. Brother, I absolutely love your Mount Rushmore, and you did it in
we got
42 seconds.
Smoothbores. We got Halligans. Are you kidding me?
Max points easily. Number 5, the question that's been around since the very first question, heavy fire and searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or first in on VES?
First in on VES. It's mission time.
I like it.
We got to search it and we got to get them out. I love the pipe too, but first in VES.
First in. I would have been surprised if you said anything else there. I was expecting VES. So absolute max points. Brother, you absolutely crushed the 5 questions for firefighters. And that officially makes it 211 scraps in the books. My brother, Jeff Rothmeier, thank you for sharing your evening with me and the audience. Absolutely. If people want to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do so?
I got a Facebook account, so I check on that. You can hit me there. Jeff Rothmeier at Gmail. It's pretty easy, but those are the two probably easiest ways that most of us are linked in. So
beautiful, man.
All right.
McGinn said, great scrap. Thanks for y'all's time. The Truckee said, that's a stacked mountain. That is an absolutely stacked mountain.
Right.
All right. Housekeeping. Go to firehousevigilance.com. Become a vigilante. $5 a month. or you can sign up for a year. It's the cost of a cup of coffee. Be a part. We just did the vigilante meetup down in Arkansas, and we got together, and it was awesome. Michael Ramirez was the first vigilante viceroy of the First In Conference. So he has a title, and he had to lead us in the creed, and he had to do the toast. He posted it all. It was amazing. We're going to get better at it as we go forward. It's going to be even more fun. The Badass Scraps continue. Next week is another Wisconsin dude, Brian Richards. He's coming on to talk. Then it's on to Chief Frank Lieb coming on to talk about his new book that is being released. And then following that, Basil Ibrahim returns. So the killer scraps of 2023 continue. Man, everybody pay attention to this part right here. There are only 70 days and a few hours until registration opens for Firemanship 2024. Mark your calendars for Cyber Monday, November 27th. Be ready. That's when you can get your tickets and register for Firemanship. My brother, Jeff Rothmeier, thank you for being such a phenomenal guest.
Yeah, no, I was honored to be here. I really appreciate it. This was fun. Thank you.
Vigilantes, if you're going to be part of the Scrap After Party, I'll put the link up as soon as we end, and we'll all go in there and we'll roast Jeff as promised, which never happens, but we'll still say we're going to do it. I'll put the link in there. I'll see you afterwards. Audience, thank you so much for tuning in. You guys are the ones that make the Scrap special with your questions. You keep it organic. You keep us real. I love it. Remember, mutts don't scrap. I hope the tones stay silent unless it is burning. Everybody, stay safe out there.